Okay, hello everyone. Well, we are going to look at bugs. We are getting close to the end of the cycle for version 13 of Wolfram language, and this is the time when we try and close off as many reported bugs that have affected people as we can. So today we're going to look at a couple of different areas. These are things that have been highlighted in our external Redmine bug reporting system, accessible to pre-release testers, and people who are interested can apply for the pre-release program.
By sending email to pre-release@wolfram.com.
Right.
Yep. Or support at wolfram.com. Either one will work. But
Okay, so let's start off with image and signal processing. Okay, so 48 reports resolved in 13.65 have been resolved in 12.3. Okay, subset of recently resolved issues. Okay.
That's just a sample of to show bugs that have been fixed.
All right, is this typical of the size of bugs that we are seeing in this list, or are these small bugs?
Well,
I'm asking Shadi. I'm asking Shadi.
Yeah. Sorry.
The size of the bug itself, you're asking.
I'm
not
asking
the number.
These no. I'm saying these appear to be, fairly corner case type things. They're bugs. They're very important for polishing, but we're not looking here at strategic issues. Is that because there aren't strategic issues in the bugs database in this area of functionality, or is that because we didn't address them?
More strategic bugs, I guess, comes to us as suggestions, and we address them in a batch as new features that go out. It's harder to address them as bug fixes.
All right, so let's take a look at some of these. But what I want to know is if there are people watching, listening to this, who use our product all the time, and they're like, oh my gosh, there's this horrifying bug. I've reported it 8 times. It's really slowing me down. Is that going to be in this list, or is that not going to be in this list?
It should be. It should get.
Okay, so
Stephen, can I say something about?
Yes.
For Redmine, what people usually care about, they have a particular workflow, right? They're trying to get from A to B, right, programmatically, and then they run into an issue, right? I mean,
yes.
I mean, there may be point issues, but it can completely, like screw up your, what you're trying to do.
Follow.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yes, there may be point issues, but yes, they also matter if it's part of a bigger picture.
Fair enough. But I mean, there's some issues which are, you can't get there from here, and there are other issues where, well, that's annoying, but I can work around it.
Sure.
Now we want to polish everything, but the ones where people are like, I just can't get from here to there, those have to be the highest priority. Mm-hmm. And have we successfully prioritized those things?
I think so. I think we look at
Why
every
don't I
single
look at
bug,
the raw data? Where is the raw data? Can somebody send me the link, please?
You mean the raw data in Redmine, or what?
Yep.
Okay, Jay, can you have that? I'll do it as well, but I'll.
Okay, and send me the link to the ones that are in this category. Okay.
Yep, Jay, can you do that, please?
You speak.
Jay, speak up. Yep, speak up, please. Yep, thank you.
Okay, that's right now.
Am I getting this?
We're working on it. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Okay. Chromaticity protrusions on large gamut. Wait a minute. What is this? What am I doing here? Click here. What's going on? What is this? Okay.
So the way we organize.
Okay. So let me comment on something. This nonsense with this enable dynamics thing, that is supposed to be fixed for 13, right? That's an example of something that is in your face every day, needs to be fixed. So I assume that that's getting fixed. I know that isn't our subject today, but that's something
I don't know if it is.
Get it fixed, right? But somebody has to chase that to make sure it gets fixed.
Who's taking notes here? Or should I can take a note.
Oh, no. Come on. You've got to have organized this properly. Who is taking notes?
I'll take a note. If nobody speaks up here. or Stefan, can you?
Yeah, I can
This
take
is
a
the
note.
dynamic warning that it's a John Fultz thing. That
Yes, I'm on
I
it.
don't know if it's. I don't think it's fixed, but it's.
Right, and that's probably going to need. Okay.
But for this meeting, we organize it just like every one of these items just has a notebook that kind of shows, the thing.
All right, but I mean, these are not. Are these controversial bugs?
I don't think this one is. That I get the suggestion. Or bug. It shouldn't
No,
be
it's not a
doing
suggestion.
that,
It's a
but
bug.
It's a bug.
The bug.
It is a
Anything
bug.
where it plots a point outside of the chromaticity triangle or whatever it is, outside of this triangle, is a bug. How could it not be a bug?
No, this one is a bug. The rest of them are suggestions. So that's why I.
Sorry, rest of what are suggestions?
The rest of the items for image processing in the left notebook.
Okay, so are you telling me there are no bugs? There are only suggestions? Because I don't believe that.
I didn't look at raw material from Redmine.
Okay, so we are not properly prepared here. Well, okay, so you're going to get this bug fixed. I mean, what exactly is this bug? Shows protrusions for system color profiles that have large gamut. Okay, do we know why that happens?
We're currently looking at a cross-section of the 3D version of chromaticity plots, the chromaticity plot 3D, and then that plane gets drawn on the 2D plane. I don't know where this is exactly coming from, but we have discussed with Julio doing a projection of the whole 3D gamut instead of just doing the intersection.
I mean, it doesn't seem like it's the right thing for me to debug this here. And it doesn't sound like you have the right person here. Julio is the person who's dealing with this?
Julio is still doing some of the color projects that he has started working on.
Okay, so this is
but
the
this
3D
one doesn't
version.
show it. Then the 2D is just a bug.
Okay, then it's just a bug, right? I mean, it's this thing. Okay, I mean, surely somebody can find it. It doesn't seem like the most heinous bug in the world, but somebody should find it.
Yep.
How do I log into this? You don't have anything on the screen, so I'm not sure what you're looking at.
How do I log in to the issue tracker?
You don't.
It required that the link you sent me requires login.
Let me check. Hang on a second. The last time you did not want to look at this, so that's why we didn't. I specifically.
Well, this time I think I have to look at it because I don't think this is an adequate list. I think by the time you're telling me these are only suggestions, I know this isn't an adequate list.
Okay. Well, last time you specifically did not want to take a look at it, so just give me a second here. Okay.
Yeah, but it wasn't useful to send me a link to a login I don't have.
I'm resetting the password and I'll send it to you in text. Just give me a second here. Okay. I'll send it to your email.
Fine, that's fine. I don't quite know why a thing like this couldn't be included in the notebook rather than having to.
That was my decision because last time you did not want to show this. So like you specifically excoriated me that I shouldn't have included that, and you didn't want to look at all the raw stuff, etc., etc.
Okay. Local adaptive binarize uses the mean and standard deviation of the neighborhood to compute the local threshold. Please add a method to use Otsu's method to. I have no idea. Binarize already uses this method.
The user is asking for more control over how that threshold is computed, or want to hard code it to a specific threshold. That's the reasonable request, and we're going to look into that. Yes.
The image effect function. Well, that was sort of a catch-all function. Yeah, it's an interesting point. It was implemented before neural nets, right?
We can implement so many
No,
more
I'm
methods.
asking the question. I'm asking this
Yes.
question. It was implemented using classical image processing before
Correct.
neural nets, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so there are two questions. One is, are the effects that we currently have capable of being done faster with neural nets? And two, are there a boatload of other effects we could do?
Yes.
Personally,
both questions.
Personally, I think that a lot of these exotic effects are well prototyped in the function repository. I'm not sure that having a bunch of weird effects built into the system with string names in this function is the right way to go.
I was thinking roughly the same, function repository or network repository. We're already looking at some effect networks that could be converted and placed in the net repository.
Well,
they could be then linked from the function repository. No,
but I mean, the problem is, how is anybody going to find it? Like, okay, let me give an example. This torn frame effect, is that in image effects or not?
That one is yes. That was in.
Okay, so so let me take an example of that. So I mean, let's say I do a let's see, what is it called? The notebook screen capture? Notebook screen capture? No. What is it called to capture a notebook?
Current notebook image.
Okay. Let's get the notebook called download. Oh, great. Well, we'll find something here. Let's pick that one. Okay, I'm just trying to understand whether this actually works. Okay, so there we have that. Okay, so now we say image effect. And now how do we tell it what we actually need, which is, I want to tear it at some point down this page. That one
you would have to crop or image take at whatever size you want.
Let's assume it's at the size I want.
It's hard to see it in this one because it's a lot of white around it.
Okay. Well, who knows? Okay. I mean, this particular thing, it's not clear that image effect on its own is it's not clear that image effect on its own is the right thing to implement this. You see what I'm saying? Because this really has parameters.
And we do have some parameters for these boundary effects in image effect. I think some categories that are really commonly used and wanted could still get added to image effect or get improved in image effect.
Or could just become functions in their own right.
Sure.
I mean, it's just some of the image effect things are too obscure, but I think it'd be worthwhile to try and figure out, let's do a review of image effect where we try and distinguish 3 cases. Case 1, they become functions in their own right. Case 2, they become function repository items. Case 3, I think becoming pure neural net repository items is fine to achieve the functionality. It's not useful for discoverability.
Fair point.
Making sense?
Yes.
Okay, so let's
I sent you an email with all the information if you want to look at the Redmine thing. But
yep.
I think it's working now.
So I'm using
the second email has the actual password in it. It didn't take the first one that I sent. The third email has a link for the image Redmine issues related to images that people reported. Is it working?
Yep.
Okay. So we selected certain items from that's on the agenda. It's like not everything is.
Okay, but so where can I sort by priority here? Okay, so where is this one, for example, on the list that you're showing me?
Jay, is it on there or not?
Well, I took the list that I discussed this with Shadi.
Oh, look, there's something listed as urgent.
Yeah, but
I assume that's getting fixed.
If you click on it, you'll see the activity.
I don't see that getting fixed.
And then that internal bug report has the link to our internal bug report.
Okay, but it said version 12.2 was its target. What happened? You can't tag it as urgent and then have it not fixed for 2 releases.
That skipped me.
Was,
I can take the blame on that. That has probably completely skipped me, but we are also very much moving a lot of, no good excuse, but moving a lot of resources to video wrap-up. And that one just didn't get enough attention. I'll have to see.
But you can't have something that's tagged as urgent here, and either it's incorrectly prioritized or that, and I don't understand how it fails to be on the list that I'm being shown here.
Also, I would like to mention that this priority is set by the external reporter. So not
okay.
Well,
then okay. Then are we fixing these priorities? Because that's not going to work. Who is determining these priorities? Somebody says, "I think it's urgent."
For Redmine, this is a way that users can indicate that this is urgent for them. Like some people
Okay, but do we have a mechanism for look? What's urgent for one person, what's unurgent for somebody else may actually be something that's really important, but they're just a meeker, milder, less pushy
exactly
reporter.
Yeah. So I wouldn't put too much, like
right.
Some
but
people...
so I want to know if that's the case. If we're going to manage this, we have to be able to have our version of what the priority is.
Which we do inside the bug report, and that gets reviewed by Shadi.
Okay, so I should just ignore this, basically, is what you're telling me.
Well, I wouldn't ignore it. I mean, this is a specific user. Like, there's no extra details here, like why it's set to urgent. But
well, then we should ask people to do that. We should tell people, if you want to set it to a high priority, you've got to explain why.
I mean, this one was set by Sander, right? Who we know, right, as a previous tester. So yes, we can ask him like why he sets that specific.
Right, but I think we should specifically ask the question: what, if somebody is going to set something above normal priority, we should tell them as part of the instructions, tell us why. Exactly, they may have a very good reason,
yep,
or it may just be that they were frustrated because they needed to solve something that day and they thought this should work and it didn't.
Exactly, yeah. We should do that, yeah.
Okay.
And sometimes they say that and sometimes they don't. I mean,
I know, but so we should, and if somebody, is somebody looking at these reports, and if they put it to the higher priority and they don't say why, we could even have an automated system that sends back something. Well, they can't tell automatically whether they explained it because it's just in a
right. Every report gets reviewed and it gets an internal bug report that gets assigned to the developer. So this system is the user facing or the pre-release tester facing system.
Well, this is a decent suggestion. It's not really for this group, is it? But that's a decent suggestion of a slider, right?
No, that would be for me.
Okay. Seems like a good suggestion.
I agree. The toolbar in general needs to get some love when we have time.
Well, is that something that requires UX work, or is that something that is where the UX is either trivial or done?
I think the UX is okay. I wouldn't want to get back to UX with that. There are a good number of bugs and suggestions that we have internally come up with.
Wait a second. This meeting was supposed to be about bugs, not suggestions. Why am I seeing suggestions here?
I think you wanted both, if I remember correctly. You wanted both bugs and suggestions.
I mean, we had a meeting before this with Arnold, Shadi, Charles, and Stefan. Basically, we try to get a list that will make this meeting productive. There are some bugs where We just
well, so the point is this: we have a version coming up. Bugs have to be fixed. If there are a bunch of excuses for why bugs aren't getting fixed, this is as good a place to air them as any. But otherwise, high priority bugs need to get fixed for this version, as we all know.
Right. And they are. I mean,
Well, okay, but we see no evidence of that here. I mean, this.
Well, that was not,
so that is a good question.
Right.
How
that
many
was not
of
the
these
point of
are
the meeting
straight
to provide
wrong answers?
Right.
How many of these are wrong answers? How many of these are crashes? How many of these are things which definitively stop somebody in their tracks? Versus things like, it would be nice to have a slider here.
Do we even have that categorization in Redmine? I don't know. In our internal bugs database, we do say this is a crash, this is a wrong behavior.
Well, I mean,
can I filter for bugs?
Stephen, sorry. Like this says, there's a resolved issue, right? Image compose is 3 times slower in version 13 than 12, right? That's about 10 down. Go about.
No, it was right here. This
No.
here says resolved.
Yeah. Right. So that's an example of somebody, right? Maybe this was detected internally as well, but somebody outside as a pre-releaser tester found that.
Yeah, found
right?
that problem,
and we fixed it. So that system is working in the sense
okay,
that.
So now here, this says feedback. I don't understand what that means. It says find geometric transform is behaving erroneously. What does that mean? Does it mean it's giving the wrong answer? Or does that mean it's, there are multiple things it could do and it's doing one of them and the user didn't like the one it did?
To look at the details here, let me check.
Okay, but why didn't that make it? Why didn't something like that make it onto this list? Okay, I don't understand. What is the criterion for things to, just things which seem entertaining to discuss is not a good criterion for this list.
Well, why
didn't that one make it into this list?
That would have been too much, too many items for one meeting.
What was prioritizing these items?
We looked for bugs that were still open, right? So there's some resolved issues in here, right? There's no point in going over a resolved issue. For example, the image compose being slower in version 13.
No, I agree. It's not worth it. We don't want to go over that.
So that was removed from that list. There's some things that are just, like shoddy or developer. There's just no, it's
no what?
It's still being reviewed in the sense that, right, there's no information.
That seems like wait a second. It's still being reviewed as in we don't understand what the point is, or it's still being reviewed as in people didn't get to it.
So,
in other words, the thing I'm trying to stamp out is these things where a bug gets through this version because, by golly, nobody paid attention to it.
So there are bugs that we brought up, and the developers agree that it's a bug, and felt like they do plan to fix it.
Wait. We need to make sure they're going to fix it, right? Not just they plan to fix it, but oops, they didn't fix it, right?
Right. If you allow me to say, we, at least in our case, we when there is a bug which is reported from Redmine, from internal or whatever way, we always check them, make sure that we can fix them. Some are obvious to fix immediately, we fix them. Some may require more work, and then we hope that by the time we release or the next version, we fix them. So there is
no. So what should happen here? The purpose of this meeting should be the following: there is a bug; it's not so easy to fix. Is this something that it's worth going to a lot of effort to fix, or can we punt on this? That's what this meeting should be about. Not, oh, there's a featurette that we might add, it's a little fringe somewhere, and we can discuss it. It's not a great use of time. The thing we need to do is make sure that nothing which is, where somebody says, for a given bug, there's several different dimensions. There's how important is it, and there's how difficult is it to fix, right? And if it's easy to fix, And everybody's just like, okay, we fixed this. It's under control. We can do it. We don't need to discuss it. The case we need to discuss is where I'm going to hear back from you. Oh, we didn't fix it for this version, even though it's an important bug because it was too hard. That's what I don't want to hear after the fact. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand. I'm trying to make a new. Hang on a second. A new filter for you to take a look at, which are just bugs that are in progress. I think that's what you really want then. So let me send that. You want me to send it in email or?
Either one.
Okay.
Okay, so what happened to this bug? This looks like a sensibly reported bug. What happened to it? So look at the internal version.
So there are two bug reports. There's the internal bug reports, and
when was this reported? What was?
A year ago.
A year ago. A year ago. Okay, so what's happened to this?
This specific issue, there are notebooks attached and images attached. I again haven't looked at. We don't on our regular daily basis. We don't check Redmine. However, a lot of these are reported internally. So we look at
all of them are reported. There's an internal bug report link. So there's and they're assigned to Shadi. So it's it's up to her to review those.
Okay, so I've got the following question. This was reported a year ago. It seems bad. It's much worse than these little things about, the fact that it would be nice to have a slider in the image toolbar. I'm kind of upset that the list here is kind of a whitewash list.
Now I can confirm that both of those internal bugs are fixed.
These ones here. So why didn't that feed back to the Redmine thing?
That I don't know.
Okay, what's our process for that?
They should have been. They should have been.
Okay, so it's a bug in the bug process.
Yes.
The tester didn't do that. They normally are, but okay.
Okay, so this is fixed. So if I run this now at work, was it fixed in 12.3?
One of them, yes. Let me check the other one as well.
One which resolved in 12.3.0. The other one does not have a resolution. So
okay, so it doesn't have a resolution. So what's going on?
No, it doesn't have a resolution version. Sorry, it has.
How can that be? I thought we should always put the resolution version, but it was fixed in May. So I think.
So something went wrong here. So what went wrong?
Which one are you talking about right now?
The second bug, 410.724.
We should always have a resolution version when something is fixed. I have no idea how that's marked as fixed and closed, but doesn't have a resolution.
Resolution changed from pending to as designed. Come on, what happened there?
Well, it's a comment from David there. He resolved it.
Okay, the results are actually right and were wrong before, and this is why. So what's going on here? So was the report incorrect? What happened?
Now I have to look at the notebook to see if the other bug properly addresses the actual bug that was reported in that external report.
Okay, so wait a minute. Here's why. The transformation, whatever, does not belong to similarity transformation class. It is affine because all three scaling factors are different. Okay? Therefore, finding the similarity will give you error. What is needed is to switch transformation class from similarity to affine, which will be precise. Okay, and then somebody just closed the bug. But I don't understand why, that seems like silly thing from okay, so the basic point was somebody said, what is the similarity transform that takes this picture of a duck that has been distorted with an affine transformation to this other picture of a duck or something, and it isn't a similarity transform. It is an affine transform, but it is not an accurate fit to a similarity transform. And what do we do in that case? Do we just silently fail, or what do we do?
I think what was happening before, and I'll have to confirm with this one, is that we just give a similarity transform with a larger error. Fine geometric transform gives
Is that
the
the
error
right
as
thing
well.
to do? Does it give the errors?
It does.
Oh, fine.
The result is an
Then-
error, comma, transformation matrix.
Then I have to agree that this is fixed. If that's what it's doing, if that's all that was being discussed here, then I have to agree that it is as
and Jay,
correctly.
okay, if everybody agrees, and Jay, you just need to follow up. It's, looks like somebody didn't, get back to the user with this.
If you go back to the Redmine ticket, there was a discussion. It's still open because the user wants a small clarification in the documentation.
Well, that's a reasonable point.
Mm-hmm.
But then why is it listed as closed as designed in the internal bug report?
Has that
Well,
big
that would be a
back to the
That would be a
internal
separate
bug?
bug to report. That's a different bug if it's a
I see.
documentation issue.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't think I had seen that.
Somebody should report it, Stefan, but that's a different, maybe it was under different tickets, but we need to look into that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll chase that down.
Seems completely
Documentation
reasonable.
issues are separate from code issues in the sense that, like we're not allowing bugs to kind of drift from one issue to
I
the
understand.
next.
That should be in the possible issues section of the documentation. Makes perfect sense.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's go back. For the sake of having this meeting be meaningful, I'm looking at these and I don't really understand what these are. Again, these are things that are unresolved, but they are basically suggestions. Is that correct?
Yes, and most of them are small if you don't want to spend time on it.
Well, it doesn't seem store image information about edge pixels, extracting edge pixel coordinates. The edge pixels as an edge property. So this is a suggestion for extracting. Why isn't? So this has to do with I don't quite understand. This is basically like boundary mesh or something. You're extracting the edge of a feature in an image. Is that true?
Do you remember what morphological graph does?
I think so.
It's a function that gets kind of a skeleton of an image and then converts that to a graph. So the suggestion here is to make sure we get some properties, some information about those edges that were simply reported as an edge, unweighted, in that graph, and store it as kind of an edge weight or some additional edge properties.
Sorry, actually, Ali is commenting on the live stream that this isn't the case. Read the notebook attached to the bug. So this still has to do with this bug here. Is that correct?
I'll read that.
No, but I mean, what we're saying, what's being said is we're not correctly closing this.
Okay.
There's some additional issue.
I'll reopen it then. It looks like both the developer and the QA person interpret it as a fixed issue, but
well, so there's still a problem here.
Yep, and I just click the reopen button and we'll take another look at it.
Okay, so this is another comment from Sander here about is numerical precision of region membership. So does it say it's in it or does it say it's not in it? Let's find out.
Right. So, I mean, this is an issue we are working on the robustness of our implementation. So it's an issue and we're working on that.
Well, can you say a little bit more about it?
Yes. So, and essentially a region member with two arguments. In the case of a rectangle, we have a closed form formula, which is not stable enough. As you see there, the S coordinate of the point, it's 10 to the 6, right? And so that formula is pretty much unstable when you get to that close, where the region member has a function, which is the second case, have a more robust, stable numerical code, right? So what
I don't understand. The point is not in the region, is it? Or am I misunderstanding? The point should be outside the region.
Right, but we get two different results, yes.
I know, but the first result is the wrong result.
Right.
Am I correct?
Yes.
The first result here is the wrong result.
It's the wrong result, yes. It should
okay, so then what is so if I say region member of region, comma, point XY. What the heck is that?
It's a, the region res XY is a function, right? We return, and if you give explicit values.
That's the curried version, is that right? Like the
right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, but so you're saying if I do this, I get that, which is going to give the correct result, right? In this case, which it does. Now, for some reason, this case here does not give the correct result. So
no, it's the first case. So if you add a second argument to region member, right, is the one which doesn't give the correct result.
No, it does. Look at it. It's giving the correct result. Look at it.
For the specific value, for the
Let's talk about
the
actual, yeah.
Not I know this point is not in that region. It is outside the region. It is minus 10 to the minus 6. The region goes from 0 to 15. It is outside the region. This is the correct result. Right?
Yeah, I think so.
Right, Charles?
Okay.
I mean, look at it. It's
yes.
minus, yeah, right. So it's outside the region. So that's the correct result. So the curried form is not giving the correct result. Right? The operator form is not giving the correct result.
Right.
Okay, so why is that? It's because it's turning it into a mesh, and the mesh has different kinds of approximations in it. Is that correct?
Correct. We have two different algorithms for which are running. So we just need to make sure one is most robust, more stable and robust.
Well, but I mean, it may be that it's okay. If that region was the coastline of Norway, right? This is not such a simple problem.
Change the point to like, instead of -6, make it like -1, or like in the PT equals, and then at the very top.
But in this one here, let me just do this. Let's say -1, 1. Okay, it's correctly going to give false. So if I go,
it gets closer and closer to 0, because that's the boundary,
right. 10 to the minus n. I'll just make a table here. N goes from 0 to 10.
Yeah, and I make it 10.0 or something, just to make sure it's a numerical.
Okay, so it didn't. So all of those were false. But if I do 10 point, oh, strange and curious.
Well, it's minus 1.0, right? So it's
times 10 to the minus 6. So why isn't that? So in this case here, I should be getting, if I do region member of this, and I say 10 to the minus 6, minus 10 to the, minus 6. What am I doing here? Look at this. That's what's wrong. Okay, there we go.
Okay, so it's just a numerical, at some point.
It's a numerical glitch.
Yeah. That's
for
probably
sure that should be in the possible issues for now.
Yep. Can someone write that down? I'll take a screenshot.
Right. So this is obviously a complicated issue, because as I say, if it's the coastline of Norway, how does it do the region member test? It doesn't even, it has some sample points. How does it assume that the boundary exists? Do you understand my question, Charles?
Right. I mean, if you notice, for the last couple of versions from 12, I think 12.3, we started to introduce more robust algorithm like, collinear point and such, where essentially we focus on that robustness, and it's those modules we need to propagate, in all functions, so they can actually they're more stable, right, in those cases.
Yeah, but I think this is ultimately not a winnable battle, is it? I mean, this is ultimately, there are going to be cases that fail. Am I not right?
In principle, no. We should be able to have numerical, more stable algorithm.
But I understand that point, but I'm asking the question, if the region is something really complicated, like the coastline of Norway, how do you describe that region? And then how do you determine whether that particular, place on the beach is on land or in the ocean?
Right. So if it's a coast of Norway, which if I assume that is a mesh region, so the boundary is pretty much linear, right? So in that case, we should.
All right, so we're assuming it's a linear. Okay, so you're saying the contract is it's going to be a piecewise linear approximation, and then get the point right, whether it's on one side or the other of that piecewise linear approximation. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. And
Okay,
it depends on the different representation we have and the type of region you provide. So you have to.
I'm seeing another bug report here. Boy.
Is that coming from the chat, or where's this coming from?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But this, I mean, this is a different group, different team that deals with this, but it will be good to know what the state of this is.
I'll look it up. Just give me 2 seconds, or maybe somebody else can help out here, but we can look that up. It should be.
Okay, all right, let's come back to, okay, I'm going to use this as a test case. There is something that Ali says they reported 4 years ago about fine maximum flow that isn't fixed. So the question now is, lovely. Okay, these are good. Okay. So is that question? No, I don't want to see suggestions here. This is a bugs meeting. This is not a suggestions meeting. Okay. Can we be clear on that, guys?
Yep. I got it. And let me then try to find you a.
Okay. So the question is. Now, Sandra is commenting on the previous bug that the thing was a polygon, and you're right, it's a polygon. And Charles is saying that we should, for polygons, we should get this right, definitively. Right, Charles? And that's what you're saying, that there's a method we know to get this definitively correct. Is that right, Charles, or is that not right? Charles? Hello, Charles.
Can you hear me? Yep. So
now we can. Yep.
Yes, definitely right. Yes, we are working on those robust algorithms for linear cases.
Just to be clear, the algorithm you're talking about, when the region specified is a polygon, it will definitively get it based on machine comparisons, based on based on the comparison you would expect of those. Well, I guess it's not completely obvious what the comparison is. And as you get towards machine epsilon, it's going to get more complicated. But
exactly. And it depends on the method used, right? And yes.
But the issue is, why is it failing at 10 to the minus 6, which is far above machine epsilon?
No, so that's why I say it's more about the formula which is implemented. So there's a numerical error propagation in that formula. So we use two different expressions, and that's the problem there.
That's a lot of propagation, 10 orders of magnitude. How come?
I don't know. We are checking that, and we hope to solve that soon.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I put a link in the chat and to your email for the open bugs in Redmine.
Let's take a look at the ones that were actually bugs here. Okay, not suggestions. We're not looking at that. Okay, canonicalized polygon crashes when evaluated repeatedly. Charles.
Yes, so that is a known issue we are working on actively. It's an important issue we know, and we are doing our best. And essentially, it's a memory allocation issue. Hard to track, but we are working on it.
So it's a memory leak?
Yes, or pretty much there is a pointer which is jumping at the end, and it depends on the C constant. It works in some case, and when you reevaluate, it crash. So yeah, we are chasing that down.
No, that's not right. It crashed. The very first thing crashed. Just crashed the kernel just now. Right? It crashed immediately. It didn't crash on a memory leak. It crashed immediately.
Yes, as I said, it's.
No, but it says it crashes when it's run repeatedly, but it didn't. It crashed immediately.
That's why it depends on the machine, the C constants. It's happened. Like in my case, it doesn't even happen, and you have to change the state of the kernel for it to happen. So it's a complex issue in the a pointer we have in in our implementation when we are reconstructing the polygon. And we know.
I assume that we're running this with appropriate, validation harnesses for the low-level code and all that kind of thing. So we know, when it writes outside some array bound, we know where that is, right? We're using modern tools to figure this out. Yes, we're not just going and looking by hand, by eye at what's going on, right?
I think that should be a separate discussion. I won't reply to that.
Okay, well, but I mean, that certainly other teams know how to do that. Okay.
Right.
So if you guys don't know how to do it, you should find out.
It's not the issue. We have the tools.
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. Well, that seems like a nasty bug. And has QA successfully characterized it, or you say it's too intermittent to characterize?
The deed is actually reported, and before even the user reported it, and it's well characterized. We know when it happened. We
don't know when it seems to be intermittent, right? I mean,
we actually know the piece of code where it happened. So is the state of the our memory allocator, right? We have our own internal memory allocator which allocate memory, right, from the operating system. So if it happened that when we get the memory, it fits in the current memory allocator which we handle, it will not crash. But if it gets outside that, in any case, both are an issue. But if it gets outside that, then the system crash. So it's pretty much explain why we have both crash. Sometimes it crashes, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, that's nasty. All right. Discretized region and discretized graphics behave differently to fixed and mixed precision inputs.
Right. So that one is similar to the one above. So
that's a treatment of numerical precision,
yes,
which is a tricky business.
Right. And one key thing is that our geometry or the mesh framework we have is essentially machine precision. I mean, for performance and such. Right. So, and we are progressively, handling higher precision, right? Our general precision framework. We improve region bound. I think it's bounding region completely to support all arbitrary precision, even exact. So we are kind of progressively, propagating it through the whole system. So,
well, what is different behavior with fixed precision? So, fixed precision meaning machine precision.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. That's what you sign up for. The idiocy of machine precision, not our fault. The fact that the whole stack of technology has been built with the IEEE floating point standard is terrible, but not something we can fix. I mean, is there more to it than that? That different algorithms are going to give different treatments of numerical roundoff.
Right, and we are trying our best inside to adjust all that. I mean, to return you the correct results. So it's fall in that whole framework of more robustness. In terms of whatever input the user give with whatever noise, we try to adjust it. So. And we have it a lot in geometry, right? People can give really degenerate region. You can give a rectangle which is roughly a line. Right? So
I know that's the bane of computational geometry, is all those degenerate cases. Okay, we're seeing something from Sander here on. What's wrong with that? Looks perfect to me. Oh, no. That's a weird case, right? So the point here is only the position of the dodecahedron has been made fixed precision. Its volume still could be exact. Boy, that's a subtle issue.
And we have a design decision on that. I mean, we are rigorous on that. It's the global precision of the expression is machine precision in that case. It doesn't matter the details. We cannot handle it by case by case.
Is that documented?
I don't think so. I don't think we want.
Let's make sure that's documented. I agree that that's a perfectly reasonable decision.
I don't fully understand. It's just that
the dodecahedron.
Okay.
Yeah.
The volume is still
position,
exact if you give an exact.
Right. So you know
radius.
the volume of the dodecahedron. It doesn't matter where in finite precision space the dodecahedron is placed.
I see. Okay.
Right. But it's a reasonable decision that if there's any machine precision in there, make the whole thing machine precision. It's just like if I say, some Bessel function with, one of its arguments, machine precision, even if it turns out that the result is independent of that, we still give machine precision.
Yeah, it's definitely consistent with almost everything else we do. So,
okay, so I want to come back to Ali has a comment about a 4-year-old bug in find maximum flow. Can we find maximum flow? Can we find that bug? And somebody search for that in the bugs database.
I'm looking. Do you know, Charles? I mean, you may be familiar with the find maximum.
Probably, I think it's probably of this list. I mean, it's one of those complex memory issue.
No, but wait a minute. Okay, can we see it? So we're not speculating. We can just look at it.
Jay, I think you had it on your first meeting in the list, right? I don't remember exactly the.
Okay.
Yes.
Pull up the find maximum flow bug that you had. The bug number in Redmine and/or in bugs, doesn't matter.
Sandra is commenting in the Bessel case, there's direct dependence on the input. There might not be. It might be a theorem that for that value of the, for pi over 2 or something, the result is always exactly 0. If the second argument is pi over 2, I see the point. I see the point. The point is that if one of them is machine, no, it could be the case that if the second argument is exactly pi over 2, then you already know that independent of the value of the first argument, the result is 0, for example. And I think that's analogous to the dodecahedron case. In other words, as you think about kind of the error region, you're right that with an exact value for one of the parameters, you could decide, I think this is, again, it's a subtle issue, but I think it's the same issue as with Bessel functions in this case. I claim it's not different.
Okay. I put the Redmine issue. I think that's the core thing. A number of people have reported this, so it's probably good to discuss.
Oh boy. Okay.
There's also, I put a Redmine link as well.
Here is the fix, says Charles, 1024, 3 days ago.
Yep, we work on it and we finally figure out what was the key issue.
Right, well, so then we declare victory on this one. Then
right,
we can tell. Go ahead. Let's go ahead and look at the Redmine version.
I missed that. Did you just say that was fixed now?
3 days ago, yes. It's listed as fixed by Charles.
That's why Jay removed it from the list. He had it in the list, if I remember.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that could have been in the list of recently fixed.
Right, but it wasn't like tested yet, so I didn't want to give like a false hope.
Okay, so wait. So it fell in the chasm or crack between it is an open issue and it is a resolved issue, and therefore it is an issue of which one cannot speak.
The viewers that are pre-release testers have access to daily builds. So if this is actually in builds, then we can.
But it sounds like is the PR merged or not, Charles?
Yep, it's merged.
So it's in the build.
Yeah, it should be.
Okay.
So let's look at the case that was reported here and declare victory.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds good. That's
just for Ali's information, since he's experienced this bug for a while. What can you give some characterization of what happened here, Charles?
Yes. So in this specific case is when you compute the maximal flow with edge capacity. Right? And it's, we kind of need to rewrite the optimization problem, reconstruct the graph essentially. And then pretty much we emulate the capacity as, by introducing a new edge and controlling the flow between the edges. So during that process, we actually need to reconstruct the graph and copy the information, right? So during that process where we copy the information that there was, an error, again, a pointer error when we were copying the original data to the new constructed graph.
Why did it take 4 years to find that?
Because it was complicated to find.
Because a pointer error, as in the wrong pointer was passed and it just gave the wrong answer. Or pointer error, as in the pointer pointed into La La Land and the thing crashed.
Actually, that's the thing. It was not crashing. So what essentially was again happening is that, again, with the way we allocate memory, we were copying the pointer and not readjusting it, at the beginning of the list. So it was still copying and it was copying wrong values.
Okay.
So it was not crashing, but just that's why it was reading different values. So it was reassigning capacity in an incorrect way.
And had it been, it looked like from that bug report, there was a fair amount of internal activity trying to fix that. It just didn't get found until you jumped in, until you dived in and found it. Basically.
Yeah, and I've been looking at it for a while now too. So it's one of those which, at the end is, it's quite simple, but, when you look at the whole code and try to trace down where it actually happened, it's complicated.
Sure.
And sometimes bugs look easy, like there's a long-standing bug with absolute options of graphics, right? Like that should be giving better results. And, that's been reported like over and over and over again by users. And I think in version 13, if I'm not mistaken, Brett actually made a lot of progress in addressing all these issues. I think he did a talk about that at the conference. So, sometimes, a bug can look very simple, like, it should just work, but the work behind it can be, like a month of work. I don't know if that's the case with Charles's bug, but, it sounds like that was just not easy to debug.
Right. As we move more and more to top-level code, it will become easier and easier to debug things. And hopefully when most of this code is written in compiler intermediate language, not in sort of raw C code in cases where it's a, highly optimized computational geometry algorithm or something, these things will get easier, I would hope.
Yes, and actually even now it's kind of the direction we are going, intensively moving most of the code to the top level.
Right.
And just leaving a small subset in the C or such.
Right. Just for a moment, and then I need to go to a different meeting, which I think is also live streamed. We're talking about quantum framework. No, it isn't. Okay, sorry, guys.
For future, okay, so just to summarize, for future meetings of this form, more bugs, you want direct access to Redmine queues.
I think so. Look, I think it's useful to talk about the goal here is, if there is a bug like this 4-year-old find maximum flow bug, that bug is an embarrassment. That's what we should be talking about. And at least I'd like to understand, and I think our users would like to understand, why wasn't that fixed? Okay, the answer may be it's really hard, and that's okay. But, let's understand that. Right?
Yeah.
And, the purpose of this meeting is to unstick things where actually there's a way around it, we didn't think of it, or whatever else. Or where, where actually it's a thing that's being reported. That's a very amusing idea. Are those available? Those ASCII forms for undirected edge, is that possible? Is that possible?
You mean with escape keys, or I'm not sure?
No. This is not escape keys. This is non-escape key versions.
I mean, like
that may be a LCC issue to
like
figure out why this not be possible.
Yeah, I know that's probably not for this meeting.
For underrated edge, we used to essentially use the the less dash greater dash form in the copy and paste, and things change.
But this cannot possibly work. If it's like 2 -- 3, then what is it? That cannot work.
I know.
Can't work.
It's some right. So I mean, this isn't for this meeting. These are things. If they're suggestions, they should be fed into the ILD queue or some appropriate place like that. That's not for this meeting.
Right. But it's super ambiguous, this suggestion. I don't think this can possibly work. So.
Yeah, I don't think it can work either. Okay, two comments from the live stream. One, there was a comment about sending out rolling updates for things. That's not in anybody's interest, because it is hard enough, that you don't want an incremental version that has not been fully tested. We have our whole Packlet system, and there are parts of the system that can be incrementally updated, and those are being updated incrementally and are automatically updated on.
Yeah, sorry, I have a few things to say about that. Of course, we do lots and lots of Packlet updates. I mean, more and more stuff is in Packlets, and we update.
What's the frequency? What's the typical frequency of a Packlet update? I mean, in other words, is there a Packlet
would know, but I think it's maybe 6-10 a week updates with bug fixes.
Is that right?
And also in version 13.
So those are automatically field upgraded.
Yeah. And then also in version 13, the documentation is separated out. Like it'll still be a single, user interface, but it's separated now, so we can do documentation updates more regularly in principle, like full documentation build updates.
Well, the full one is a huge download. I mean, I assume we've been doing incremental ones.
Yeah, but we're doing 2 releases a year. We could have every quarter we can do improvements to documentation updates in principle.
Okay, but that's different from our point updates, which we are already doing because they're Packlet updatable, right? Yeah. So I've got a question.
Third digit updates are bug fixes, so that's people
right.
Like
but
that.
I've got a question. Why? I mean, I'm happy that we haven't had disasters from those 6 to 10 Packlet updates per week going out. But what if some user is depending on a bug in the previous Packlet?
Dependent on a bug? That's
depending on a bug.
Then, well, if it's a bug, it's a bug, and then then they would probably have to fix, update their code. I mean, if
I realize that, but I'm just surprised. Obviously, we're not burning in the bugs. But my question is the fact that it's an invisible process, basically, those updates.
Mm-hmm.
And
it should be.
Well, I understand that, but my question is, are we not seeing, and it's great if we're not, cases where something mysteriously changes? Somebody says, I ran it this way one day and I ran it this way the next day and I got a different answer.
I'm not aware of much of that. I mean,
I'm not either. I think it's great.
We have every once in a while we screw up, and then we, that people tell support, and then we fix it with just another update. But doesn't happen super often. I mean, happens maybe once.
No, I think that's a triumph that we're not seeing that phenomenon, right? Because people know I just uploaded version 13 from 12.3. They know they put in a version update, and if something changes, they know to be suspicious about the version update. But if it's a Packlet update that happens silently in the background, they don't know to what, and we don't have any manifest that we're putting out about what those are. Is that correct? How would somebody know what they were? I mean, it sounds to me like
it's very much behind the scenes. It's
right.
Users
well,
are
it's good. It's good because that's the way it should be.
Yeah. And on the Twitch chat, Ali Hashmi is saying, I have something to say about that. They're talking about bug fixes for, currently released versions, and again, that's possible with Packlet updates as well. If there's a bug in a version, like say 12.3.0, right, and you don't have anything more recent, right, then with Packlet updates, right, there's a minimum version where the bug fix applies to. So we can, Packlet update can fix a bug for, 12.0, 12.1, 12.2, and 12.3. Like that's it. We have that capability of going backwards in time to fix bugs for, versions of Wolfram language that are already out there. Does that make sense? Am I making sense? Or
Right. Yes, I understand that. That's good.
Okay. That's just to address his question.
Ethan is asking, how many open bugs are there total? Well, it's like asking, yes, but it's asking how many, how many puddles are there in this particular park? It depends on, whether something is validly counted as a puddle.
The internal bugs database goes all the way back to 1988. And so, everything that's ever been wrong, right, is in there. So there,
and there are about 400,000 total things that have been reported. Is that correct?
Yeah. And I don't know how many open ones, but, too many. I mean, it'd be nice if we, fix just bugs, but, that's not how software works, unfortunately.
Well, but the main problem is that we don't even know many of those bugs. The thing that says it's a bug is itself a bug, so to speak. And, one of the things that happens is bugs get fixed in quotes because somebody goes through the bugs database and discovers that the reports were confused and the thing that was reported is in fact not a bug. And so there's something of a trade-off there of one can go chasing things which have been reported which are in fact not bugs.
Yeah. And especially with older bugs, that drives me nuts. It's just, things get fixed, but the bugs database doesn't get updated. Like nobody tells anybody that,
well, nobody knows that was something that fixed that happened today, reflected on something that was reported in 1992, for example.
If I go back to 2006, the bugs for 2006, and I start randomly retesting bugs, then, typically, quite a few are actually fixed. It's just, we just don't have the bandwidth to do that.
In a perfect world, we would. I mean, the problem is that there's another issue, which is that if we take a code base that we can make more harm if we go and fix things which are kind of, yes, it's a nit, and in a perfect world it would work differently. We go fix it, and then we break a bunch of other stuff in that piece of code, because really what should have happened is eventually that piece of code should all have been updated. But it doesn't make sense to go putting patches in that can actually cause more harm than good. I mean, it's a complicated decision. It's like there are things which are genuine bugs, like it is, definitively wrong, versus, it'd be nice if this worked, or in this weird corner case, the thing we do is not the best thing to do in that corner case, and there's an argument for why that corner case should be improved.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have some complex.
Sometimes you may be able to fix a bug, but the result of the function, the function can get 10 times slower because of it. That's another.
Yes, that's another issue.
Like,
right.
Sometimes you fix a minor bug, and then there's just consequences to everything. So.
Sandra is suggesting a October contest to kill as many bugs as possible. We have done a number of those things in the past, and they have been fairly successful. And I take the point that the 12.1.1 release, which was a bug fix release, was a good thing, and expect that we're going to do things like that again. It's we're trying.
We should probably do a 13.0.1 bug fix release in January, February timeframe.
I would hope so. Yeah, I would hope so.
That would be my preference.
Okay. So there's a comment here. About insects and bugs. Oh my gosh, this is a language about the word bug, which the word bug has long ago separated from its meaning as, it's like if I use the word, I don't know, I think the word in English that has the most distinct meanings is set. If I use the word set to talk about a train set versus something else set, those words have separate meanings, even though they are spelled the same and pronounced the same. I consider the word bug applied to a piece of software is not the same word as bug, as in a lovely creepy crawly insect. So
yeah,
any correspondence between those is purely historical. Every word had an etymology in which typically the word had, was at one time had the same meaning and then separated in meaning. And I think this is a word we're going to use the word bug because that's what people call this. And, if it reminds you of the insect version, well, fine. But to a software engineer, it's primarily telling you about the thing that we mean by bug.
Sometimes we talk about issues as well, but like there's still the term debugging, right, which is based on bugs as well. So
right. I mean, it's one of these things where it could have been, a piece of soot that got into that early computer, and these things could have been called, something different. It's just what's that? Dust.
Dust specks, or yeah.
Okay. In any case, Ali is commenting that the issue is, if there is a fix for a bug, then release this for the current version.
That's what we talked about. We just addressed that.
We can do that for Packlets, but for non-Packlet code, we can't do that. In order to, the code is an integrated thing, and you can't backport a fix typically to an earlier code base. It just doesn't work.
I mean, there's one interesting thing. Apple has I forget what there was a bug in Apple where if Apple had released this bug, we would have had to go back to 12.3 and earlier to fix it. It was an issue with linear algebra being completely broken because of some register 18 issue. So we actually already made a 12.3.1 new build just in case, Apple released.
But Apple did fix it.
Apple did fix it, and so we're holding that in reserve. But if Apple still, breaks that functionality in a future release, we'll probably roll that out.
I have no reason to think they would break it. I mean, they know probably from us and other people that it was broken, and they fixed it.
But if they happen to do it in March or something, right? 12.3 users will get a fix. We already fixed it. We just decided let's not release it because it just, that's just going to be disruptive. But
well, there's no point in releasing it because the only people who have it will be people who are pre-release testers for Apple, right?
Yes, yeah. It just showed up in one of Apple's betas earlier this year, and then we spent a fair amount of time and effort to get that fixed.
Right. I don't think that that's something we can sign up for. I mean, in other words, in general, if it is in a beta operating system, and we'll try to fix it, but I don't think we can be. We support released operating systems, not beta versions of operating systems.
Yeah, but it showed up there, and people started noticing it. There were test failures, and it's an exceptional case. But sometimes we do go back in time and release another update.
Yeah. Okay. A point from Ethan: add automatic performance checks. Look for time, space, complexity regressions. We certainly have such tests. Having the completeness of those tests is a hugely computationally difficult and ultimately undecidable type problem. But it's not like we don't have any such tests.
Exactly. I mean, we measure every test case as timing, and so we record that, and we do notice like overall, like if something slows down a lot, we can analyze all that.
Right. On the other hand, it's worth remembering
what Ethan is saying here is more like take one function and go into some parameter space and figure out, like that's harder to do like across the system. I mean, yes, you can do it for some functions, but
just to explain that point, I mean, the fact is that it is not a bug necessarily that this very fast case of some function got 3% slower because, the function was rewritten and many things got 20 times faster, but this particular thing got 3% slower. Mm-hmm. That's presumably, that's something that should not be considered a bug because, it's one of these things where in principle you say, well, nothing should get slower, but in a sense, anytime you're doing a computation where you don't already know the answer, you're doing the computation. And the only way you can find out what's going to happen is to do the computation. So it's not, there's no way to say, oh, it should never get slower. And, the only question is the distribution, and it can be even more complicated. I mean, if you take something like, I don't know, factor integer, which has huge variations in timing, depending on the particular integer you feed it, there's this question of what is the correct way to assign. I mean, in a perfect world, you would have an a priori distribution of possible computations people want to do, and you would say, if you take that a priori distribution of probabilities of computations, then what is the average slowness for a particular average speed increase or decrease for a particular person based on the distribution of computations they want to do? That isn't something that is an unrealistic thing, other than anecdotally, so to speak, to try to assess. I mean, this relates to certain questions about the P versus NP problem, and my belief that there's certain aspects of that aren't even very well possible to define in axiomatic systems, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, but we will get ourselves off track by talking about that. Ali is asking, so why is replace pixel value broken for their previous version? What does that mean? I
see a bug that Ali has reported for a slowdown. I don't know if this is the same bug or another one. But the slowdown that I'm looking at is fixed for 13. I think we should find a way of reporting it back on Redmine that this is going to be fixed in 13. It's still marked as open in Redmine. Or right. Actually, okay. No, that one is marked as resolved, so I take that back.
Okay, well, Jay should take a note about and then follow up with you to see what's going on there.
I made a note.
Yep, thank you.
All right, Ali is commenting about comparing timings. We do tons and tons of comparisons of timings of all sorts of different things. I mean, the problem is this isn't a simple problem, and as it might be obvious even from this meeting, looking at specific bugs, things get quite subtle quite quickly. And, again, you have to kind of figure out what is the optimal frontier of, the difficulty of analyzing what's going on versus what should be built versus what is worth building that's new versus et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, the reason discussions like this are useful is to help us understand and help what priorities should be, but it isn't we're doing something stupid and it's obviously wrong. I don't think so. I think it's a pretty complicated problem, and we are attempting to carve out an optimal frontier between what's new, what should be fixed because it will make it better, as opposed to it reminds one of, if you kind of like, medical interventions where you could say, well, you could fix that, but then this would go wrong. And, that won't be a win overall. No, I think Ali is saying if a bug fix slows down the function, does not mean to not fix the function. Up to a point. I mean, like you could say, we can improve the numerical precision of this, but it will be 100 times slower. What do? Right now we get, 5-digit precision. We could get 15-digit precision, but it will be 100 times slower. What should we do?
Yeah, I mean, you could run everything in the Wolfram language at 100-digit precision, and you'll get better results. But,
right, and the goal, as much as possible,
it'll be 100 times slower, probably. So,
right,
yeah.
But the goal, as much as possible, is to provide those choices to users so they can decide what to do. But sometimes there's a it is an issue. We know that we could make something more accurate, but it will be unbelievably much slower. And again, it has to do with this, what is the optimal frontier between making it more higher precision, let's say, versus slower. And that's a complicated judgment call.
Yeah, we do have a lot of that as method options. Like NDSolve has tons and tons of method options where if you pick one option, right, you get better results, but it takes longer. Or you pick another method and you get faster results, but maybe not.
Crucial is commenting that having more things in packages. Look, that's what our Packlet updates do, and as we were just hearing, there are 6 to 10 such updates per week. So yes, that's what we're doing. That's the direction we're moving in. On the other hand, just saying we put everything in packages, that's an absolutely abominable solution. in terms of having a large-scale coherent system for the long term. That is absolutely not what you want. I mean, in other words, the function repository is wonderful and allows us to deliver a lot of things quickly, but the function repository does that by not maintaining the kind of design integrity that we try to maintain for our long-term system. And that means that, you know, I can write a function repository entry, and I've done so in 5 minutes. The minimum time to write a built-in function is, you know, just probably 1,000 times that time. And that's because, you know, we're building something which is coherent, which fits into the system which we want to commit to, and we have successfully committed to, you know, over the course of many decades. And, you know, it's a different problem. And, you know, it's one of these things where it's a frustrating thing about software. Sometimes, you know, it can look as if things are, you know, it's like, oh, look, it's so easy, I can just do this. And you rush forward and you do one particular thing, and it's like, oh my gosh. A very extreme example of this, I tell a little story, and I need to go after this, was a person I guess I knew long ago, who contracted to build an operating system for a company. It was a long time ago when people did that. And they had this demo working in a weekend where there was a early windowed operating system. They had a demo working, it brought up Windows. But it did it rather slowly. 5 years later, with a large team, they had not managed to finish the operating system. Even though at the beginning, the first weekend, they did something spectacular, it did amazing things that were very state-of-the-art. It just turned out that was a different problem from the problem of actually getting the systematic software built. And you know, that's where things, when you're prepared to have less unified design, less robust, you know, implementation and so on, yes, you can jump ahead and do things very quickly. And our goal with the function repository and so on is to get the best of both worlds, to have the ability to deliver things that are far ahead of our main curve, while recognizing that those things are not intended to be, you know, in 30 years, the things that are in the function repository today will still be in the function repository, but many of them will have been overtaken by systematic things that have been built into the system and that we can commit to for the future, so to speak. But on the other hand, some of those things might have been the leading way to do something in the function repository for 15 years. And that means that things can get done 15 years ahead of when they would have been done with things that are built into the system. So at least that's our theory of it. And I think it's a pretty good solution. And I think the solution is not to go and say, oh, let's have this hedgehog of random functionality that we sort of say is vaguely related to the system. I think there's all sorts of interesting comments here. Ali is commenting, if something gets released, it should be comparable or better than state of the art. It's an interesting statement. We'd certainly like that to be the case, but here's the trade-off. And this is the thing I fight with and we fight with internally quite a bit. There are teams, I could name them, where everything they deliver will be state-of-the-art or beyond state-of-the-art. Okay, that's the good news. It will be spectacular, wonderful, pushing the envelope, etc. The bad news is it might take 8 years to do that. 5 years, whatever. Might take a long time to do it. So the question is, in the intervening time, is it better to have released something that doesn't give wrong answers, but it isn't as fast as it could be, for example? Or is it better to wait for the extra 5 years? That's a complicated trade-off.
Yeah, I mean, I think Shadi's still with the video processing, right? I mean, we that's a long-term project where we have deliverables along the way, right? And the initial releases are not necessarily state-of-the-art, but you know, it will be. And in version 13, you know, we're pretty close.
Well, as well, we have a big experimental tag above the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
I mean, but you know, it is correct that there are many things where, you know, by the time it's stable and, you know, not experimental and so on, it better be state of the art or beyond.
And state of the art itself moves constantly as well. It's, what's state of the art today is not, it's not state of the art in 5 years. It's not a static endpoint.
Right.
I mean, you can have state of the art image processing today in Wolfram language, but it doesn't mean that 5 years from now it's still going to be, state of the art.
Well, indeed. Although an awful lot of stuff we've built, I mean, many things have turnaround times of over 25 years in terms of algorithm advances. Some things, there are areas like machine learning which have advanced rapidly, although that's slowing down now. And that's I think we did pretty well at climbing that hill at the right time. Now, we in that particular case, there are things we did. We spent a lot of effort on technologies. I mean, we're now on our third underlying framework for implementing image processing, and we may very well go on to yet another generation of that. And that's a lot of work each time. And I'm kind of glad we did all of those because it allowed us to deliver things on a timely basis, but it's complicated. Ali is commenting, a wrong answer is a wrong answer without exception. I wish it was as clear cut as that. We've been having this argument about binomial coefficients with negative arguments, and there's an argument for one version, there's an argument for another version. I think arguably we picked the wrong thing, and that's something we're reviewing. I will say I'm going to make one last comment, and then I really should go. And this is about the IEEE floating point standard. Again, I've told this story before, but it has the idea that it will always give you 16 digits of precision, even if 10 of those digits are completely wrong. And even if in the internal computation, you could know that they're completely wrong. Now, in our arbitrary precision arithmetic for the last 33 years or whatever, we have done what I think is a correct version of this. And we do tag which digits are correct and which digits we know to be incorrect, and we just don't give those digits. We manage the precision to give you only digits which are correct. But the IEEE floating point standard, which is what is built in to 100% of all floating point units of all computers around the world, does not have that idea. And the person who was responsible for that, I certainly discussed this point with him, and his main argument is, well, people who use numerical, approximate numerical computations should do the numerical analysis to work out whether they're getting the right answer. That is an incredibly silly thing to say. It's an incredibly user-hostile thing to say. And of course, the person who said it is a numerical analysis professor, so it's his business, or it has been. I think he's probably retired now, but was his business to teach people that numerical analysis. But the reality is, most people, most of the time, when they're flying their rocket, nobody is doing. I think the winner probably in the department of closest to real-time numerical analysis is Mike Foale, an astronaut who was, this is years ago, was on the Mir space station when some accident happened, and actually was doing computations with our technology to figure out how to stop the space station spinning. The Russian ground controllers wouldn't let him actually implement the thing he thought should be done, but so it goes. That's probably the closest to. He didn't have to do numerical analysis. He was just using, I suspect, solving differential equations and so on. Generally, it is not realistic to have. That's an example of how quotes wrong answers. The IEEE floating point standard has probably produced more wrong answers and more bad, than sort of that's probably the winner and historical winner for most wrong answers generated by computers in the history of our civilization. And unfortunately, the trade-off is if you don't use it, if you say, well, that's a bad idea, then you're doing your arithmetic in software and it's going to be 20 times slower at least. And what we see happening with neural nets is a repeat of that same situation, where a little bit different issue, and it's not about precision, but where the particular architectures that exist today are being burnt into hardware, and those will go really fast. And even if there's a much better idea in the future, we're going to be stuck forever with essentially compiling things to the particular architectures that exist today. And I need to go because I'm really late for something else. And these are interesting issues, and we can talk about them some more. But it is not. I would like to claim that it is not nearly as cut and dried an issue of whether sometimes there are cut and dried wrong answers, and yes, those are obviously a high priority to fix. But there's an awful lot of gray areas where it's like, well, yes, you could argue that's what it should do, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And all these ones to do with numerical precision are just a horrible, horrible quagmire. Anyway,
in those cases, we tend to give users the options, right? Like
that's the
option
idea.
mechanisms. Like you can either get
well, right,
you
performance goal, arrow quality.
You can have your cake and eat it too. Like you can, right?
That's a typical thing. Is the performance goal option is a good way to select.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, I have to run off. Okay, well, thanks all for
participating.
Yes, for participating, and we will continue to improve this process. It would be much better, Ali is commenting, we only discussed 3 or 4 bugs, and I had expected much more than that. And clearly this is a tiny tip of an iceberg here, and hopefully we get to see more of the iceberg another time. We will continue to debug this process. All right, I've got to run off here. See you guys soon.